As we've seen in the past, switching from one OS to another, such as from Windows 10 to Ubuntu Linux, can have a huge impact on plotting times. But what if we switch from Ubuntu to another type of Linux, such as Clear? Let's find out. Now, I've tested this mainly on SAS2 and NVMe's, and it seems like overall, there's an improvement of roughly 30 seconds per plot, and that is a considerable difference. So if we look at 8 SAS2 SSDs, our time is down to 938 seconds per plot, and that is only SSDs, no RAM disk. With the RAM disk, we're actually below 900 seconds. And looking at the NVMe, we're actually below 900 without a RAM disk. With a RAM disk, we're down to 887 seconds per plot. And an interesting thing about Clear Linux is it seems to allow me to actually use RAID 0 on 2 NVMe's, which is awesome. Except for when you look at the actual results. So here's a comparison between SAS2 and the NVMe's without any kind of RAM disk. And the interesting thing here is that with 2 NVMe's, we actually are slower than with a single NVMe. And if we look at the times with a RAM disk, we see the same thing here. It's actually 2 seconds slower with 2 NVMe's. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, surely to God, you must have done something wrong. And I thought so too, until I remembered that I actually had someone commenting about the fact that they were getting slower times with 2 in RAID. And after rerunning the tests, I got very similar results where, again, the 2 NVMe's were slower than a single one. So enough talk about seconds per plot. Why don't we start asking, how much space can you fill per month? So if we look at a system that doesn't have a RAM disk, we're looking at 273 TB per month with the SAS2 and 286 with a single NVMe as well as 2 NVMe's. If we do have a RAM disk, however, the differences are not that big. We're actually talking 286 versus 288 or 289 when it comes to the NVMe's. That means unless you're using 3 terabyte drives, we're talking less than 1 drive per month difference between these super cheap SAS2s versus the not so cheap NVMe's. And bear in mind, those SAS2s should last a lot longer than your NVMe's. Now, would I recommend Clear Linux over Ubuntu? Yes. Yes, I would. Because it is faster. And it seems to be slightly more stable as well, at least on my system. And even if it were to take you a whole day or even an entire weekend to set it all up, if you're completely new to Linux, I would still recommend that, because in the end, the time that you spend on figuring it out, you're going to make that time back in plot time, especially if you're planning on doing a larger farm. If you have any questions about Clear Linux or plotting in general, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. Until next time, bye.